Hi there, welcome to Chaos2Cured podcast. Jeffrey Fried is not here today. I'm actually joined by Christy Thiel. She's a master nutritionist, and we're going to finish up the second season with our first video too. So I'll upload this to YouTube. So if you have listened and are curious, you can hop over to YouTube. We're going to finish it off with microdosing, and we had I had already done my show with Jeffrey where we had kind of talked about it. I wanted to get a little more in depth, and for all those that are listening, I am now successfully at 50% of the diazepam, which is a benzodiazepine, very strong. I've been on it for over 20 years, and so at half after I think what 2 or 3 months of microdosing. I've been very open about it because I want it done correctly. And there's a lot of myths and stigmas on, of course, any of the psychedelics. So can you mention a few of the things that I'm sure you hear when you get asked and you have some questions in terms of, what are the stigmas? What are the fears people have when they come in so we can just dispel those right now?
Sure. And let me grab something real quick. I meant to read a quote. Some of the stigmas are that they're going to lose agency because when we hear when we hear psilocybin, it's all sort of drug related, and people have either experimented with psilocybin in the past recreationally, usually at larger doses, or just the word microdosing seems to indicate it's more medical. And so all of this is you do not flood your serotonin system to enough to have hallucinations. The main purpose for microdosing is just to stabilize. And stabilization just means when you're in a bad mood or you have negative feelings or something's bringing you down, you feel less down. And when you're in a good mood and you have good habits and you already feel good, you're just going to feel more better. But it's not
Yeah,
altering who you are. It's just activating more of who you are.
well, I know there's a lot of fear about, you know, um, people, like you said, losing their ability to kind of think, that grasp on reality. And of course, when you mention recreationally, most of the time, people will take a much bigger dosage. So for the protocol that, we utilized to help me come off benzodiazepines, I am on a higher dosage than I think most people would need. And so people watching the video right now, I am on 300 milligrams right now. So I don't see anything. There's no hallucinations. There's no issues. I'm actually just cleaner and my mind remains calm. So coming off these benzodiazepines is actually extremely intense. And my body is still going through some adjustments. So I do get really intense cramps. And I'm doing this under a doctor's supervision as well. So if you're coming off anything, please don't ever discontinue without a medical, speaking to a medical professional. But the the dosage around 100 milligrams is very small. Recreationally, I think people use around 3,000 plus milligrams. It's a pretty big dose. So when you're talking about such a small amount, I want people to kind of know it's very, very in terms of, there's a lot of question marks that we have too. So there are a lot of studies that are happening. So we can't ever say that anything is 100% safe or perfect for anything. I mean, aspirin isn't. But as far as the alternatives to, say, anxiety or PTSD, depression, the SSRIs, some of those medications are really starting to show problems. And a lot of the doctors now are starting to kind of fight against utilizing some of those medications. So they're working more on nutrition. And so this is one of those things where I look at microdosing more as a nutritional supplement rather than a medication. So that's how I kind of feel and look at it. It's not something that I ever, if I don't take it, there's no need, there's no desire, or you know, so we'll dispel that myth right there too. So if you start taking it, it's not like you have to take it forever. For me, I will continue to take it until I'm off the benzodiazepine. And what is really interesting is I truly, and I already know when I finish off the benzodiazepines, I won't need to continue. So this is something that, you know, if I could choose to continue, it's not a big deal. But if, let's talk about a little why this works. So, um, it- I know you heard the podcast. So we were talking a little bit about neuroplasticity, and my honest belief is that I think the best analogy I came up with is if you think of a circuit board. So our brain is very much like a microprocessor. So if you use, say, you know, copper, or let's say gold, gold is actually supposed to be, you know, it's less conductive actually than copper, but your signals, they don't have enough bandwidth. So our world right now is, as Jeffrey and I always talk about, it's cacophonous. It's filled with noise, pressure, stress, and all of those things bombard us, and our brain can only take in so much. So I truly believe that this actually induces what's called a hyperplastic state. This is all hypotheses, by the way, but that allows us to use proper techniques. So from cognitive behavioral therapy, all the stuff I've done in the past, I can then use that and it's more effective and it sticks. So I do know that there's a lot of other uses for this. What are some things that you can tell people that you've worked with, some success stories, so they understand that, you know, this is a really miraculous thing people need to be paying attention to? Do you have some good stories?
Yeah, so most of the people, I'd say 60% plus, the people I work with are type A personalities, where they are overachievers and they don't know when to stop. And so when they come home from work or whatever they've been doing all day, they're less patient with their children, they're not connecting with their husbands, and a lot of them are self-medicating with alcohol because they're
Yeah.
so driven that they cannot stop the information coming into their heads. Like you've explained the flicker fusion theory.
Yeah.
All these people that I talk to about it's too much information and they all feel like there's a gun to their head, even though we
All the
know
time.
there's not.
Yeah.
The microdosing gives them that way to focus where they can actually slow down the stress, or like this micro seizure that's happening in their brains from the time they wake up. They're like in these little mini seizures of over information and, you know, and just putting too much on their plate. So they come home, they take the microdosing, they've noticed that they're nicer to the people that they work with, even if they don't deserve it. They're nicer to themselves. They're more
Which is a
patient.
good thing. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, they're nicer. They're way more patient with their children. And it really helps with intimacy and connecting with others, because it's hard to connect with others when you can't even connect with yourself, and or you hate yourself, you're depressed, you're anxious, and you're not in the present moment. So,
Absolutely.
like you were saying, even after one capsule, people are noticing this shift, that they're not accessing the same quote default mode of anxiety, repetitive thoughts, predictable behaviors. And now those neural pathways aren't set after one capsule, but the shift is already happening in their network, in their neural network.
Oh, that's beautifully said. And I realize I never finished my analogy. You know, if you take that processor and suddenly you switch out how, and you open up the bandwidth, right? The idea is, you know, if you think of electrical signals, for me, that's the best way I can explain it. I actually, as people know that have listened, really struggle with going to places, changes in my schedule, changes in routine. Those things are part of OCD. It's absolutely fascinating to see how drastically this has changed my ability to function. So I can go to, like, in the past, going to Costco, I was overwhelmed. And a lot of times I would even need earphones. You might be hearing a dog barking right now. So if you are, right, the funny part about that is those things used to really throw me off. And what, instead of being, I guess, self-critical, one, and instead of being scared of those situations, I've been able to reframe how I face those. So I'll go into Costco and I'm like, okay, let's try to enjoy every step. Like, oh, and look at all the colors. And again, I don't notice a huge change in anything. There's nothing visually or like happening because of the microdosing. However, mentally, I am able to focus on enjoying. So all of a sudden, these things that used to be extreme tasks and very challenging and honestly, it's not easy. If you can't go to the grocery store, it's you have to pay somebody to deliver or and then what happens is, I kept noticing, especially with COVID, I got more and more trapped inside. And this it's a nice way, as you think, it's kind of a reset. I know they've done some studies and shown with, PTSD, one experience can absolutely change and alter that individual. And they've had lasting results with treatment-resistant depression. So Johns Hopkins, that was a study there. There's lots of big and phenomenal researchers doing the work now. It's something I really believe in. And, I know for the state of Colorado, it's legal to possess. You can't sell or anything like that. So it's definitely going to be some legality issues that everyone's working through. They're getting good enough results. It appears they're kind of fast tracking this one.
Yes.
So the results have been spectacular. And I do want to share one of the individuals that I worked with was dealing with severe treatment-resistant depression, and that had been for 2 years. And the wife reached out, and I was like, okay, this is an individual that's very physically fit, does not want to have any really, drugs in their body, so to speak. And so I said, is this something you're open to? And so 3 weeks of that, and all of a sudden he's got his life back. So that, and by the way, no longer continuing to take the medication. So back to the gym, back to functioning. There's so many uses. So if somebody's watching this or listening to this and they're struggling with anxiety, they're struggling with depression, just feeling absolutely stressed out and overwhelmed too. ADHD, oh my goodness, it's spectacularly better than any ADHD medication. I've tried Concerta, I've tried, Adderall, everything that people have tried, I've been on it. They are very intense. They intensify the anxiety, which is not helpful, right? But the microdosing has been even more effective. I feel like I can multitask better. So there's a lot of uses for this. And I know with, one, I want to thank you for helping me. You've really absolutely altered my life. And one thing I would like to also say is people that are interested in this really need to do their research. Please do not go just on Instagram,
No.
or anything like that. You need to make sure that you're getting quality things, and that means you need to work with somebody because it can only be offered in trade. So you need to be coached, and you have to pay for a different service. You can't pay for that. It has to be given as pretty much a gift. So as far as that goes, there's again a lot of legality issues. So talk to your doctor about it. Your doctor's going to be able to have some resources, and you can talk to them about nutrition. There's some other ways to do this. So if you are adverse or a little scared of microdosing, I would still ask you to reach out to Christy because she also offers consulting for nutrition. And my goodness, the data there is spectacular. So, do you have an easy way for people to reach you?
Sure. Just my email or texting, I can respond probably the fastest to texting. And my number is 970-980-9068. And do you mind if I spit something out real quick?
No, please. I think your knowledge is very helpful for all the people listening, and this is a really important topic for me. So please.
So, when they've studied the stressed out brain in adults, we call this ADHD. We know that it is the accumulation of stress. Stress that's chronic is literally accumulating in your body. Could be your brain, could be your gut, could be your nervous system, it could be anywhere. And no one knows the tipping point of how much anyone can handle. And stress can be defined as thoughts, toxins, and traumas. And as soon as one of those buckets is overfilled, the whole domino effect happens. And we really cannot heal in a stressed out state, which is also why I see microdosing helping so much. Like you were saying, the guy goes back to the gym and then they're ready after they feel better. And the small things don't become big things, and then they don't become overwhelming. And then that whole spectrum of
Yes.
PTSD starts to manifest. This is when people start to heal, once they start to stabilize. We
Yes.
can't ask a stressed out person who's overwhelmed, withdrawing, depressed, anxious, not sleeping to change their diet. It is,
Absolutely.
I've tried it for 10 years and I have like with the people who do it, who can, very successful, but most people are more overwhelmed by those changes when they're in that stressed out state, which is why I think this works for so many people, because just the stressed out brain is a comorbidity in and of itself, and it can contribute to all cause
Yes.
mortality. Just want to show
You
that
know,
the stress is
the
bad.
no, it's so important to talk about stress, and that's one of those things that is definitely going to happen when people are more anxious because they're running hot. Their sympathetic nervous system is always on. That's how you were mentioning that feeling of having a, gun to your head, like everything has to be done now, now, now. So one of the best things about the microdosing is it allows you, everyone across the board has reported a slowdown of time. So their sensory perception of time is that it's moving slower than normally. That is key for a whole bunch of things we've talked about in the past on the podcast, especially like critical flicker fusion frequency and again anxiety. So this is something that I really feel is very helpful. And the Christy and I worked on a wonderful protocol, and so it's we have some case studies. So people that are interested, what we're trying to do is make sure that everything is done, I think, equally to any kind of medicine, so that people that look at this don't make the same mistakes that kind of happened with other medications in the past. So, like marijuana was rolled out too fast, and I actually am concerned about what some of those outcomes might bring. Like the vape cartridges, they still have some I would advise people not to vape. I mean, that's my advice. But again, talk to your healthcare advisor. This is something very different. And so I do want anybody that's interested, please reach out to Christy so that you can get the right protocol. And the other thing that you have is a nice 11-step, like kind of how you set your mind, and you have an intent for each day. So that is another thing. So people, if you do this right, it's going to work. I really just don't see how it can't. I've been on every medication on the planet. So, have, when you mentioned diet, that is actually another thing. Like, let's say you wanted to change your nutritional habits. Those are very difficult things to do. It fits right in line with, say, OCD and some of the compulsions that I have. So if I can change my compulsions, I guarantee somebody can say, okay, I want to change my nutrition. If that's your intent, you could probably use microdosing to reform your relationship with food. There's
Absolutely.
so many reasons and so many ways that this can be utilized. I really think it can be utilized for learning new languages. It opens your mind up. And by the way, this has been shown in MRIs. So the prefrontal cortex just lights up. There's, I mean, we know that it actually intensifies how much processing is going on. We don't understand a lot about the mind. There's still a long way to go, but this is something spectacular. So I will make sure in the show notes that I put your contact information, and just make sure you give me your bio, okay? But are there something I want you to add a couple more thoughts so we can close off?
All right, two things. I want to read a quote by James Fadiman. And the second thing is we want the reason I think this works so well, and I've only seen it not work twice for people.
Mhm.
And one person was a dentist. And so we were like, I think I was talking with another practitioner, and she was like, hey, see if she has mercury toxicity. She did. So that's a neurotoxin.
Oh, wow.
So and then the other person was a severe, I mean, like off the wall, like skin lesions, alcoholic, and nothing was working. She had
Okay.
some deeper issues. But out of everyone else, this has made a big shift. And I heard a new analogy, which this may work for some people. Have you ever gone sledding and you keep going down the same path and it starts to get worn out? Maybe not on the snow, you're just on the dirt and your sled
Mhm.
just gets stuck. That's
Yes.
what happens with stress. We just get stuck in the same path. And then when microdosing is like the snow and it lays down new opportunities for paths and thoughts
Yes.
and habits. So the microdosing is the snow and you have a new platform to grow and expand on.
That's a perfect analogy, and it's worked phenomenally. So I'm working with my doctor, and I've already published my case study on Twitter and some other places as well. So I'll post it other places. So if somebody's interested, they can look at. Again, I will be doing this for the at least until I get off, and I'm guessing probably about 6 more months is what it will take, or maybe even a year, because I was on this medication for 20 years, and coming off of it, there are some severe side effects if you do it too fast. So you have to be very cautious. But it's spectacular. And so please reach out if somebody's suffering, if they're having a hard time. It's just thank you for what you do. It's nutrition is going to become honestly the big thing in this next wave of healthcare. It's just blatantly obvious. So there's definitely some. You can reach out to Christy for some guidance on either issue. So please do so. And Christy, thank you so much for joining me and for what you do. You really changed my life. And we were introduced by a wonderful man, a mentor of mine too. So I'm so thankful that we were put in touch, and I hope others will reach out to you as well. So please share this around, and of course I'll send you the video. But to anyone who's out there, if you haven't seen me before, hello, it's nice to see you. I will get this up pretty soon. Thank you so much, Christy. Is there something you want to add before I close it
I
out?
just want to say thank you. I learn from you all the time, and you've been such a huge uh, inspiration for me. I've never understood what was happening to the brain, especially the anxiety and the flicker fusion theory, until you've explained it. And I've watched or listened to so many of your videos, and I share them. And the way you have a real gift in explaining what's happening to people when nothing else makes sense. So thank you.
Oh, I
Your
appreciate it.
wisdom has really made a big shift in me, and I really appreciate everything you're doing.
Well, sending you gratitude and appreciation, you so much, and we will definitely have you back. I know Jeffrey wanted to meet you. Our schedules have been a little off, so we will definitely have you back. So have a beautiful day, and thank you all for listening, and just have a beautiful week. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Chaos2Cured podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with everyone you know. And definitely like, follow, and subscribe. Certainly leave a comment if you'd like. Let us know what you'd like us to talk about the next time. Also, in our show notes, there should be direct links where you can follow us on our social media, as well as reach out to us directly. Thanks again, and have a great day. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on Chaos2Cured podcast are the speaker's own. All discussion is based on our own experiences. We do not and cannot guarantee the accuracy or completeness of any information. Chaos2Cured podcast cannot give medical or health advice. All discussion is based upon our personal experiences and meant for general and educational purposes. This podcast is not a substitute for professional help or for diagnostic purposes for yourself or another. Chaos2Cured podcast always encourages you to consult an appropriate professional.